All right, good morning, everyone. The time is now 9 o'clock, and we bring the December 12th board meeting of Contractor Street License Board to order. My name is Michael Mark, and I am our board chair. First, if we could please all stand for Pledge of Allegiance, I would like to invite Vice Chair Miguel Galarza to lead us.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. And now I will note that for the record that we have some excused absences: Jacob Lopez, Thomas Ruiz, Amanda Gallo, and Mary Tykert. And Henry Nutt will be running about a little bit later today. Robin, can you please call roll?
Miguel Galarza.
Here.
Alan Guy.
Here.
Joel Barton.
Here.
Rodney Kobos.
Here.
Amanda Guy has an excused absence. Jacob Lopez has an excused absence. Diana Love.
Here.
Henry Nutt will be behind. Steve Pinelli.
Here.
Joseph Preciado.
Here.
Jim Ruane.
Here.
Thomas Reeves has an excused absence, and Mary Tykert has an excused absence. We have a quorum.
All right, thank you, Robin. Also joining us today is CSLB staff of Registrar David Folk, Chief of Licensing Carol Gagnon, Chief of Legislation Rebecca May, Chief of Enforcement Steve Grove, Chief of Public Affairs Catherine White, and Chief of Administration Ingrid Wachowski. Chief of IT Jason Perez, and Executive Office Analysis Robin Williams. Board Legal Counsel John Kin is also present, along with DCA Assistant Deputy Director for the Board and Bureau Relations Yvonne Durentes. Before we move to public comment, I'd like to make a couple of brief acknowledgements. Governor Newsom appointed a new public member to the board in November. I want to welcome Joseph Preciado to the board. Joseph currently works as an economic and small business development representative for the Sacramento SMUD, Sacramento Municipal Utilities District. He's also a higher education consultant for SOVA Solutions, following a history of working in higher education at American River College in Sacramento State. Joseph, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Chair Mark. It's a pleasure and an honor to serve on the board. Thank you for the warm welcome. My background, as you mentioned, in education, workforce development, and strategic planning gives me a strong understanding of the pressing and relevant issues that the board is tasked with regulating and enforcing statewide. I'm excited to leverage my experience to further the mission, vision, and values of the CSLB, and I'm committed to both learning and actively participating in discussions to further the board's strategic objectives. I look forward to collaborating with you all and learning more about current initiatives. Thank you.
Welcome on behalf of the board. Welcome to the board, and we look forward to serving with you. And last Friday, Governor Newsom issued a press release confirming that he has appointed Yvonne Durentes as Assistant Deputy Director of Legislative and Government Affairs at the Governor's Office of Emergency Services. Congratulations. You'll be missed by CSLB and the board staff, and look forward to your continued advancement in your career. So next, we're going to move to agenda item B, public comment for items not on the agenda and future agenda item requests. So now it's the time. The board values public input as part of our consumer protection mission to allow us enough time to conduct our full schedule of business today. I am limiting public comments to 3 minutes apiece. If your comments don't involve an item on today's agenda, this will be the time where you can make them. If you have comments on one of our agenda items, we encourage you wait until we get to that item. We'll give you an opportunity to make your comments at that time. We also ask that public comment relate to the agenda item currently before the board. There are a few other rules that apply. First, California law prohibits board members from discussing any matter brought up during public comment. And board members are not allowed to act on any item not on today's agenda. Second, if you want the board to discuss a topic not on the agenda, you can ask us to consider placing that issue on the agenda for a future meeting. Finally, if you have an application, complaint, or disciplinary charges pending before the board, we ask that you not discuss the details of your case or pending complaint. That's because board members may be the judges and by law are not permitted to receive evidence or information that is not part of the administrative record for the case. So now is the time for public comment for items not on the agenda. If you could please line up on this left, my left, your right. And first, please state your name and the organization that you're representing. Thank you. IT and our staff will look into it and try to bump up our volume. Next up.
To welcome everybody here. Thank you very much for all coming here. Michael and I are great colleagues. We work in the same building together. I know him well. Just as our welcome, I just wanted to share a few stats about the local and where you're at today. So currently, Local 104 jurisdiction covers 49 counties of California. We go all the way down to Ventura, Oregon border, all the way to the Nevada border, in kind of a weird shape there, but we cover 49 counties. Approximately 10,000 members throughout that jurisdiction, okay? Including retirees and everything, but active participating members. Scope of work that Local 104 covers is architectural metal roofing, wall panels. HVAC is probably our big core, air quality in our buildings, right? It's a big part of this local and what we train in, which is a huge thing for that industry, right? We cover a lot of industrial. We still cover residential. A lot of people don't understand that we still do residential work here in Local 104, and service, of course, service, balancing the air and keeping that air quality nice and for us in our offices. Currently, right now, in Local 104, we have a little over 800 apprentices, okay, here currently in this district, we have about 559 apprentices. I just checked this morning. So we usually, right now it's a slow time, we usually carry a little higher number, but we have currently right here in District 1 in the Bay Area counties, 559. Today, I'm hoping that all of you can hang out and do a tour of this building, because this is a building, it's a school that teaches. And the tutorial you'll get, and the gentleman that'll give you the tour, he built this building, he knows this building. You guys will get good education about how we train our apprentices. So I really would like for you guys to encourage you guys to go to the tour. We still have a great partnership with our contractors. So this is not just labor that's running the show here. We have a great partnership with our contractor association. We work in conjunction with them in every aspect of training and dispatching our apprentices to them and everything. So with that said, please have a great meeting. Appreciate all of you being here and coming to see our facility, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian Masters, for the comments. That was well deserved. And again, what Brian Masters stated was we're going to have a tour of this facility directly after this board meeting. Is there any other public comment? Seeing no other public comment, we will move on. Board members, is there any items on the agenda that you would like placed for a future agenda? Seeing none. Are there any comments from the public for a future agenda item? Seeing none, we'll move on. And maybe Rick, what you can do is if you're getting more text back and forth, let our IT know if the volume's better, okay? Moving on to item C, presentations of certificates of recognition. I will now take this opportunity to recognize one of CSLB's most outstanding staff persons, Special Investigator Delphine Tran. Delphine began her CSLB career in 2012 as a Consumer Service Representative, or CSR, where Delphine made an immediate impact by quickly exceeding the CSR closing averages of 10 cases per month. Delphine promoted through the ranks of Special Investigator, where she was occasionally assigned application investigations. For background, in 2022, in response to staffing challenges, CSLB reassigned Licensing Division Experience Verification Unit staff to assist with various licensing processes and begin referencing suspect applicants and random pool applications to the Enforcement Division. These applications require additional investigation above and beyond the review performed by Licensing Division staff. Many of the applicants have been flagged by enforcement staff, or there is concern regarding the accuracy of statements made in the application. I do want to confirm that all the applications received are closely reviewed by licensing staff to confirm the applicant meets minimum experience requirements by the more than 30 licensing technicians. In early 2024, with board approval, CSLB management completely transferred applications that were related to flagged applicants, suspect applications, and random pool experience applications to Enforcement Quality Assurance Unit. The Experience Verification Unit became the Licensing Support Unit. As part of CSLB's Quality Assurance Unit, Delphine quickly took the lead in performing investigations of random pool applications, flagged applicants, and applications referred to by licensing staff for further investigation. Last fiscal year, 2023 through 2024, Delphine has completed a very impressive 407 applications, which is certainly evidence of her commitment. Some of those stats include applications withdrawn, 55, applications verified, 245, applications that did not need further action was 9, and recommended denial, 98, for a total of 407. Delphine, thank you for your hard work and dedication. I will now read the plaque and invite Delphine to join me for a photo. So just a word of privilege here. So I've heard of all of the great work that Delphine has done for CSLB. I've been in countless meetings, and her name consistently comes up. And I am so proud of you and honored to be able to present you with this award today. So thank you. Please give a round of applause for Delphine. So we're gonna sit on this side, but I'm gonna read the plaque here, because there's no microphone over there. So the Contractor State License Board presents the recognition for distinguished service to Delphine Tran, Special Investigator, for 12 years of service to CSLB, including her dedicated work as an application investigator. On behalf of the board, we thank you for your outstanding efforts to thoroughly investigate applications and verify experience of future licensees. One more round of applause.
Well, I just want to say thank you to the board members and also to CSLB, Dave, Steve, who had, tried to make that change and give me the opportunity. Thank you, Joe, for your support. The management and the staff in licensing really helped make my job, running smooth. And so thank you again, CSLB and the board.
Thank you again. Okay, so moving on, we're going to move to agenda item D, the executive update. The first item is review and possible approval of the September 18th through 19th, 2024 Legislative Committee meeting summary and board meeting minutes. The review and possible approval of September 18th Legislative Committee summary and minutes begin on page 9 of the packet. Do any board members have any edits to the minutes? Seeing that there's no edits, can I please get a motion to approve said minutes?
Motion.
Second.
We got a motion and a second to approve the Legislative Committee meeting summary and board meeting minutes from September 18th and 19th. Is there any comment from the board members? Is there any public comment on this item? Roll call, please.
Michael Mark,
Yes.
Miguel Galarza,
Yes.
Alan Guy,
Yes.
Joel Barton,
Aye.
Rodney Cobos,
Aye.
Amanda Gallo has an excused absence, Jacob Lopez has an excused absence, Diana Love, Steve Pinelli,
Aye.
Joseph Preciado, Jim Ruane,
Aye.
Thomas Louise and Mary Tyker both have excused absences. Motion passes.
All right, thank you, Robin. Next, we're gonna move to the Registrar report, item D2.
Thank you, Chair Mark, and good morning, everyone. I'd like to start by sharing a real highlight that we had on November 19th. Chair Mark had an idea that we could have a meeting that would be comprised of state agency leaders and the building trades and building trade investigators. And we did conduct that meeting on the 19th in Sacramento. And I wanted to mention who was on the panel. It was a panel, like I will say, conference or interactive discussion. We had leaders from the Department of Insurance, Employment Development Department, Department of Industrial Relations, specifically DOSH is the ones that oversee the safety on construction sites, and also DLSC oversees wages. And we were very fortunate to have the federal government in attendance with the wage and hours. So everyone learned a lot about different responsibilities, how to make referrals, what the priorities are. And the real focus of that meeting was just on how we can protect the public as it relates to license, tax, safety, and wage compliance, so that we have safe construction sites, the contractors are licensed, and the employees are paid the wages they're owed. We had approximately 85 in attendance, so it was a great turnout. Steve Grove represented CSLB on the panel. Don Willis, who just stepped out, was also on the panel. Don is our Public Works investigator. So just a huge thanks to Chair Mark and to Steve for the work they did on it, and Public Affairs for putting it on, getting it all together, so tremendous success. And I just have an update on the next board meetings. We're planning to have a board meeting on March the 14th in Commerce. I thank Joel Barton for finding a facility for us. We're really looking forward to the IBW facility for that meeting. And the board meeting after that is scheduled for June 13th. We're going to be looking at Monterey or the Salinas area. That won't be in conjunction with the Nevada Contractors Board, as it has been for the last 14 years. They've asked that we have a meeting with them in September, and that meeting's not been scheduled, and that'll be dependent on the next board chair. So that would conclude the registrar update, unless there's any questions. Thank you.
Any questions from board members? Seeing none, I'll make a couple comments. First off, Register folk, appreciate all of your hard work in making sure that compliance meeting went well. From my conversations with a lot of the staff and all the building trades compliance individuals, they really felt that the leadership CSLB took to do that was wonderful, and they were looking forward for, in the big scheme of things, how we can protect the consumers of California. So a round of applause for everybody. Thank you. Okay, so we're now moving to item 3, budget update. We are on page 53 of your packet. I will invite Chief of Legislation Representative Rebecca May to provide this update.
Thank you, Chair Mark, and good morning, board members. The budget update begins with the budget summary on page 55. For fiscal year 2024-25, CSLB has an authorized budget authority of $82 million. The final year-end projections are 94 million in revenue, 82 million in board expenditures, and 6.3 million in mandatory external costs. If you turn to the next page, you'll see a chart that details our fiscal 24-25 expenditures through October. As noted, we have spent roughly 36% of our budget authority so far. The chart below that shows our revenue performance through October. Overall, I'm happy to report we have collected almost 40 million, which is a 6.6% increase compared to the previous year. On page 57, you'll find our fund condition, which projects out to budget year 25-26. The middle column reflects our current fiscal year and shows our beginning fund balance at 41.7 million. If our year-end projections from page 55 are realized, then we should increase our reserves by year-end to 47 million, which equates to 6 months of reserve. Turning to page 58, the chart shown is the Construction Management Education Account Fund condition, which we continue to see an increase in annual donations. I'm happy to report we received final approval by the Department of Finance to increase our grant disbursements this fiscal year from 175,000 to 225,000. This will be discussed in greater detail during the licensing update. Finally, let me briefly mention the statistical summary provided on pages 59 and 60. For the first quarter of this fiscal year, we show promising numbers with an increase in most areas. In particular, I'd like to highlight that renewals also appear steady for the first quarter with a 2.5% increase from 2 years ago. So that concludes the budget update, unless there's any questions.
Seeing no questions. I want to thank Stacy Paul, again, our CSLB budget manager, for all of her hard work. I know some of the key points that I always look at is the amount of reserves that our organization currently has, and right now we're at 6 months on that page 55. So when I first joined the board, when we were at 1.9 reserves to now at 6 months, it's like we're rolling. So it's really, really good. With that, there's no other comments. I'm going to move on to D4, administrative update. We are now on page 61 of your packet, and I invite Administrative Chief Ingrid Wachowski to provide this update.
Thank you, Chair Mark, and good morning, everyone. Beginning on page 63, you will find the administration update. I will begin by providing the personnel update. CSLB averaged 24 vacancies out of 425 authorized positions during the first quarter of fiscal year 24-25. Between July 1st, 2024 and September 2024, which is a 6% vacancy rate. Moving to page 64, CSLB personnel will host the second part of a 2-session career consulting class for employees. The first session was held in August 2024 and focused on how to locate CSLB vacancies, tips on completing the state application, and tips on drafting and submitting statement of qualifications. Part 2 is scheduled for December 12th and will focus on preparing for an interview and interview tips. Regarding employee recruitment, CSLB personnel staff participated in 2 career fairs during the second quarter of fiscal year 2024-2025. The first was held in Santa Ana and sponsored by Representative Lou Correa, Assembly Member Avelino Valencia, and Senator Tom Umberg. Attendees included job seekers, college students, and graduates from California's 46th Congressional District, and included the cities of Anaheim, Santa Ana, Stanton, Fullerton, and Orange. The second fair was in partnership with the Employee Development Department, and CSLB participated in a job fair for California's veterans on November 7 at the B.T. Collins U.S. Army Reserve Center in Sacramento. CSLB will continue to work with DCA, the California Department of Human Resources, and other organizations to partner and participate in future career fairs statewide. On page 65, we included updates regarding facilities, contracts, and training. Not to discuss the very important enforcement unlicensed practice and staffing recruitment study, and I know this study is very important to Chair Mark, and many of you attending the meeting today. The initial request for a proposal to evaluate the resources to address unlicensed practice in California and unlawful construction activity in declared disaster areas did not result in any responsive bids by the final filing date of November 27, 2023. On December 13, 2023, the board approved a motion to increase the amount of available funds for this project from $75,000 to $200,000. During the process of reposting the RFP, the Department of Finance Budget Letter 2327 was released, requiring state agencies to justify why any proposed expense is mission critical. Staff submitted their request to the department in May 2024 and subsequently developed a scope of work and deliverables for the department's review on July 9, 2024. Recognizing the difficulty in obtaining a private consultant and need to start the study underway, executive staff consulted with Chair Mark, and it was decided to consider a university to perform the study. A university can be hired through the interagency agreement rather than the lengthier request for proposal, bidding, and contract process. After contacting various universities, it was decided to pursue an interagency agreement with the California University, Sacramento. Commencing in November 2024, staff have had meetings with Sacramento State personnel to develop the scope of work and estimated costs within board-approved guidelines. The timeline provides for an anticipated contract execution date of February 3, 2025, and the final report of the study is anticipated to be completed on September 30th, 2025. Moving forward and last to training, 2024 is a required year for all managers and supervisors to take 20 hours of mandatory leadership training. CSLB Business Services sent an announcement to all impacted managers and supervisors of the requirement to take the training. And CSLB managers and supervisors have been provided with the training materials and are in progress with their mandatory leadership training. That concludes the administrative update on personnel and facilities. Back to you, Chair Mark.
Thank you, and I appreciate the information on the report. I think I'm getting some feedback. Appreciate the information on the report, and look forward to seeing that being executed sometime, I think, first quarter 2025. So we are now on page 67 of the packet. IT Chief Jason Perez will provide this update. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Board Chair Mark. On page 69 begins the IT information technology update. We are making great progress on our CSLB modernization efforts. Our first one, our enterprise content management system, is going to be our new document management system, which is going to be based on a Box Cloud platform. With this one, we'll be able to find, store, and manage documents easier. Our previous application was an image-based document where it was taking a picture of all of the paper documents that we received. Now we're going to be extracting them and turning them into PDFs. So that too, which is that extraction, transform, and load, is in excess of 24 million documents that we're moving over. Also too, we're also going to improve the security. We're removing and redacting any personable identifiable information, which will include social security numbers. So only authorized staff will now be able to pull that information. This application, we're on schedule and should be done in April of 2025. The other big project that we're working on is our sole owner online application. We have finished the planning of this and we have started to build the core functionality. One of the big transitions was moving over to a new payment provider. So we will be changing over to a new payment provider for this one. And we are on schedule for that one on May of 2025. Also too, what's also keeping us busy is our legislative updates. We have many legislative updates that are due January 1st, and we are working on those. which is include making adjusting of our current systems for licensing exemption thresholds, changing the licensing options for licensing of federally recognized tribes, and also we're also doing some website updates. And also in preparation, the IT staff have been preparing for our independent security assessment conducted by the Department of Military. This assessment will be done in February of 2025, and so we are in preparations for that. So this concludes our IT update. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Is there any board member questions? Registrar Folk has a question.
Yeah, Jason, could you maybe, probably know what I'm going to ask you. Could you explain what we're going to do for these meetings, how we're going to update our equipment? One of the problems we've had at board meetings, our equipment's quite outdated. So we have a plan for the March meeting to maybe have new equipment, and it's not going to cost a lot of money.
Correct. Sorry. Correct. We are purchasing new cameras that will be integrate into the middle of the floor, and we'll be able to capture everybody in the middle. So like in this situation, we'll have 2 cameras, and then it will feed into our online conferencing system. So it also too has a camera and also 2 mics for everybody. So we won't have these.
Thank you for that update. Question, Steve Pinelli.
Quick question on the data transfer that you're going to be doing with, what's the time frame and how long does it take to do that data transfer? Because if you're talking millions of files, what's the
So we started that transfer back in August, and we should be done, crossing our fingers, by the end of next week.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so we're on track.
Congratulations.
Great, thank you. And also, I want to make sure we recognize our former board chair, Susan Grinzello, of the IT committee. She did a lot of work to help steer this thing forward. And I think currently the subcommittee of that is Amanda Gallo, and I'm not sure the second person, but Henry Nutt. Okay, thank you. I know it was really it was real recent. So, any public comment? Okay, seeing none. Moving on. We are going to move to item E, legislation. Leading us through the legislation portion of our meeting is Legislation Committee Chair Joel Barton. Joel, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Mark. I'm Joel Barton, Legislative Committee Chair. Let's begin with Legislative Agenda Item 1. Update and discussion regarding implementation of SB 1455 by ASHB, Contractors State License Board Sunset Extension Bill. Agenda Item 1 is an update and discussion regarding the implementation of SB 1455. This item can be found on page 75 of the meeting materials. As you likely remember, SB 1455 extended the board's sunset date from January 1st, 2025 to January 1st, 2029, and made other changes to the contractor's license law. CSLB staff across multiple divisions are working diligently to ensure CSLB seamlessly implements the various provisions of SB 1455 by its January 1st, 2025 effective date. These efforts include, but are not limited to, ensuring the board is ready to process licensing applications from tribes and tribal businesses starting January 1. Training licensing and enforcement staff regarding new processes related to tribal licensure. Ensuring CSLB's examination vendor, PSI, can process direct payments and electronically transmit examination results to CSLB. Processing reimbursement payments for expert investigation cost. Updating procedure manuals. Updating CSLB's website, videos, pamphlets, and other publicly available materials to reflect any changes that affect applicants and licensees. Disseminating industry bulletins to educate applicants and licensees regarding any changes affecting them. Are there any board members' comments or questions on these items? Seeing no further board member comments or questions, let's take public comment. Are there any members of the public wanting to comment on this agenda item, following points? All right, thank you. Let's move on to the next agenda item. Update, discussion, and possible action regarding workers' compensation insurance exemption. Because agenda items 2 through 4 contain legislative proposals for your approval, let me start with a brief update regarding the legislature and upcoming dates and deadlines. The 2025 through 2026 legislative session convened on December 2nd. New and returning legislators are sworn in, held opening ceremonies, introduced bills, and then adjourned until January 6th. Bill introduction season begins on January 6th when the legislators return to Sacramento, and legislators will have until February 21st to introduce bills. Board staff will identify and track any legislation related to CSLB or the contracting profession and provide an update at our next quarterly meeting in March. Rebecca and I hope to maybe get up there beginning of January, maybe meet legislators and tell them what our needs and concerns are. First, item 2A, an update regarding the workers' compensation stakeholder meeting. As you likely remember, SB 1455 delayed the requirement for all licensees to hold workers' compensation and insurance policies until January 1st, 2028, and directed CSLB to establish a process for verifying eligibility for a licensee to file an exemption. Accordingly, the two-person Workers' Compensation Insurance Advisory Committee, comprised of Vice Chair Gallarz and myself, drafted a legislative proposal with staff assistance. This draft was shared at a stakeholder meeting on November 19th to gather feedback from industry leaders. The conversation was productive and the comments gathered helped to form the draft proposal up for discussion today. Before we move on to the specific proposal, are there any board member comments or questions regarding the workers' compensation stakeholder meeting, which you should have the minutes of? Seeing no further board member comments or questions, let's take public comment. Are there any members of the public wanting to comment on this agenda item? Yes, sir.
I'm Mark Connerly, Executive Director of the Roofing Contractors Association of California. Happy holidays to all. And I want to thank those who have been involved in this effort for including the prohibition for exemption from the workers' comp requirement for C39 roofing contractors. That is very important to us, and certainly we appreciate your consideration on that topic. This has been a major initiative for us, fighting the underground economy, fighting insurance fraud for well over 2 decades. And between 11 and 18 or 19 years ago, we passed 3 pieces of legislation dealing with this and mandating that C39 contractors all have workers' comp. And we believe that those efforts have been successful, at least partially, to the extent they could be. There's obviously still an issue, and we're still fighting it and trying to work with Registrar Fote and his staff on the issue. But we believe that to open that little loophole, allowing exemptions, claiming no employees, would really open the dam again and really undermine the efforts, again, that we've undertaken for well over 2 decades. So, again, I appreciate the efforts. I appreciate your recognition of our priorities and our efforts to fight the underground economy. And I would add that as you go forward with trying to create the language to address exemptions for other trades, count on us to be involved, count on us as your partners and to provide input. We're just a call away, and I'm always happy to get involved because we do support it really for all trades. But you know, obviously we're primarily concerned with the C39. So again, thank you very much.
Again, thank you for your comments and direction even at the stakeholder meeting. So thank you for being here. Are there any other public comments? All right, now let's move on to the proposal itself, agenda item 2B. The draft proposal can be found in the materials on page 79. CSLB recognizes the financial hardship mandatory workers' compensation insurance presents to licensees with no employees who derive no benefit from holding a workers' compensation policy. CSLB also acknowledges the unfair disadvantage contractors have when they file an exemption despite having employees, harming workers and undercutting contractors who follow the rules. Enforcement staff commonly encounter licensees who, despite having employees, have an exemption on file. Further, CSLB recognizes the potential for consumer harm and revenue impact to CSLB resulting from contractors letting their licenses lapse rather than paying for a workers' compensation policy when they do not have workers. These issues were all considered by the advisory committee and staff when drafting this proposal. Specifically, this proposal would allow licensees, except those holding a C-39 roofing classification, to file an exemption from workers' compensation insurance requirements if they do not have employees or undertake construction projects valued at $5,000 or more for labor and materials. This proposal would require the legislature to periodically review and update the $5,000 amount to account for inflation. Notably, this proposal would establish steep penalties for licensees who claim an exemption if it is subsequently determined they do have employees, starting at $10,000 minimum for sole owners and $20,000 minimum for partnerships, LLCs, corporations, and tribal businesses. This proposal would also require licensees at the time of renewal to certify under penalty of perjury that they understand the penalties for violations of workers' compensation requirements. Lastly, this proposal would also prevent renewal or reinstatement for licensees who've been found to have violated these provisions until they procure and maintain a workers' compensation policy. By sponsoring this proposal, the board would authorize staff to find a legislator to carry this bill on behalf of CSLB and negotiate amendments with the legislature as needed. And I think this will be a good, again, like Rebecca and myself will be searching for a legislator to take this on. Now I'd like to turn this over to the board for discussion. Are there any board member comments or questions on this item?
There you go. Yeah, I think this original bill was passed to prevent a lot of fraud going on with the workers' comp, and I'm just concerned that putting a limit on it, how are we going to enforce this? Right, we're going to have to spend a lot of money now that this, you can certify you don't have any employees. So my concern is what's the enforcement to make sure the original bill that we passed is not, the loophole's still not there.
Agreed. Any comment from enforcement? That to put you on the spot, Steve.
I would agree with what Board Member Alan Guy just said. Enforcing it will be complicated.
I just want to add, though, that with the penalties, it was interesting, we did a review of our consumer complaints, and we're getting approximately 1,300 a month, trying to get a little bit less, but we found that over 45%, about 45% of those consumer complaints, the contractor did not have a workers' comp policy. And so what looks promising with this proposal is that would ultimately reduce our complaints, would it not? When somebody is filing a complaint against me with an exemption and the minimum penalty would be $10,000. That's going to reduce complaints if we strictly enforce that, because we know that most of our complaints are filed against contractors that did have workers. That property owner is well aware of who was at their home. So I think that's a real positive. I think there's other things that we're looking at. If you don't want me to mention this, Chair Mark, we talked about on the website itself, putting a banner on the license where it's prominently displayed, this contractor does not have workers. So I think we would be able to enforce it for the most part. Yes, I agree it's a loophole, but at the same time, if the penalties are greater, that will offset the cost of enforcement. And if you're getting up to a $30,000 fine, that's quite significant. And that is so important, because what we see today is administrative law judges reducing the penalty. I see it because I review the proposed decisions down to $500. Not okay. So it's a risk reward issue. If you're a contractor, you have workers, you want to falsely file an exemption, you're taking a huge risk with this proposal, because one, the fine is high, Plus, the proposal has you filling out a questionnaire that would make sure that you understand you need workers. And why is that important? Because when we go down to sell our case to the DA, we'll have that. There's no question that that contractor knew they needed workers' comp and they did not have it. It's gonna make it a lot easier to file that case. So that's just kind of, the positive aspects of the proposal.
Yeah,
Through the
thank you,
chair.
Registrar.
Through the chair, I just have the same concern that Alan Guy has. As a licensed contractor, I feel like I'm subsidizing those that are cheating. And it's all in enforcement, and unfortunately, that costs a lot of money too. So it's very expensive to have workers' compensation. And I understand why some people want to skirt the rules, but it's all in enforcement. When you get them, nail them, because I'm subsidizing them.
Yeah, agreed, and that's what Registrar Folk presented, and that was our intent. As everyone remembers, for our sunset bill, this was kind of a sticking point, so we're kind of, I wouldn't say forced wouldn't be the proper word, but we have to come up with something in the interim. So, we felt that this would be a happy medium to try to get things started.
Through the chair, to David, on the penalty of, or fine of $10,000, does that also include the investigation time and staff's time to actually investigate and process the entire complaint all the way through?
Well, yeah, the $10,000 fine would relate to a citation where you would have a civil penalty. And currently, we don't get cost recovery for citations. However, if we file an accusation, if we think the contractor is going to continue to cheat or violate the law, we do get our cost recovery through an accusation. But that would be separate from the civil penalty, yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Kobos. Oh, sorry, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Could you give an example of where a C-39, where they would have an exemption?
Yes, I can, because I've had a number of conversations with C-39 contractors that have argued they should not have to have workers' comp. And the ones that I've spoken to are semi-retired, they've had a roofing business, and now they're focused on simply doing roof repair, small jobs, just trying to supplement their retirement income. We have not verified that to be correct, but that's what the argument is, that you can do roof repair. You can do very small roof projects by yourself. Now, if you're going to be running or doing large re-roofing of homes, you're going to obviously need workers. But that's what's been brought to our attention.
Thank you, Mike. I got a question, and maybe I'm kind of projecting out. You're talking about roof repairs, and I understand that, and maybe there's a valuation there, but when we're looking at roof replacements and change-outs, you're talking major dollars. It's not cheap, and it's going to be a big labor force. Would it be smart to have a minimum amount of a contract that would definitely make it where they have to have workman's comp?
Yeah, I do want to clarify that the proposal, it has an exemption or an exception, if you will, for the roofer. So there would be no ability with the proposal today where you could file an exemption if you're a C-39. So you would have to have workers' comp if you're a roofing contractor, but the other classifications would be able to file for that exemption. A minimum amount, and I think that's one thing we looked at, is the maximum amount. If you're someone that simply does only work for yourself, what would be the valuation of material and labor for the projects that you would perform? When I looked at it, I thought, well, you are going to allow exemptions for painters for doing small painting jobs, perhaps some landscaping and different things, but I don't know that there would be a minimum valuation that you'd have to do work over a certain amount. Right, come January 1st, if the work is valued at less than $1,000, you would not need a license at all. But fortunately, the board was very concerned about that, and you can't hire workers to benefit from that exemption.
So I have a question and some comments. So first off, I appreciate the legislative subcommittee on workers' comp to have that meeting and get some stakeholder input. it's appreciative. I remember myself beforehand, previously I sat on that committee and there was a lot of conversation on workers' comp and, the sunset bill going forward. Some of the concerns that I have currently, originally there was the 4 classifications that were currently today is the requirement: C8, C20, C22, C39, and D49. So that right now, as we're saying, that's a requirement for workers' comp. So what we're proposing is going backwards on those 4 current classifications and saying that they no longer need workers' comp as a requirement, and actually there will be a specific exemption if they choose. And obviously, I appreciate coming forward. There's a lot of penalties. This is one of my key concerns. I know for those classifications, and within this space, the current maximum is $5,000, right? In my opinion, that is too high for those classifications, because at some point in time, for specifically C20, there was a reason why there was a mandatory workers' comp, and that was one of the first classifications to have that. I know there was a lot of discussion after watching that meeting or listening to the meeting and reading the minutes that a lot of other consumers thought that 5,000 was too high for as an exemption. So in my opinion, if as a board we're going to move forward with this, I think it needs to be lower. What Registrar folks said, $1,000 is our current limit for licensees. In my opinion, and when I first heard this, I was throwing around maybe 2,000, 2,500. That means someone can certify that they do not have workers' comp, they don't have no employees, then they could do their maximum job of 2,500. Currently, as written, it's $5,000. So I'd like to hear some feedback on that portion.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the limit currently is $500 for a license, which would assume same for workers' comp. So when it was $500 4 years ago, we had this fraud going on. So I think just changing the level of what we're requiring, and we're going to go back, it actually promotes more fraud because it allows a bigger job. I didn't realize that fine doesn't go back to CSLB. Sounds like it goes to state general fund. So I think if we're going to consider some sort of exemption, we need to figure out a way to fund a very big investigative unit under Steve to make sure this stuff is being followed. Whether it's another bond, a fee to file the workers' comp exemption. I mean, there was a talk about it auditing the records here at some point. Maybe that's up front, but I think this is a big cost for investigation to make sure this is done properly. We tried to eliminate this 3 or 4 years ago, and I don't think we should back down from trying to reform the fraud that's going on in this industry.
I do want to clarify if I misspoke, though. The civil penalties would go back to CSLB.
Okay.
So yes, we would collect those.
I think one of the intents is that there's so many, when you're dealing with undocumented and or EDD, that there are some fairly straightforward gotcha moments. For instance, if somebody goes in and says I was an employee, and they go to EDD and ask for unemployment insurance, that's a trigger for CSLB to automatically say, you have somebody who's filing unemployment, and you claim not to have any employees. That's a gotcha moment for that contractor, and clearly, part of the test of the 5 questions or 10 questions that they have to pass are going to be the rules of employment, so that they have clarity as to what is an independent contractor. Is this person an independent contractor? Wrong. Start over again. And so they cannot pass go until they answer the question right. And once they answer it right, then they're swearing under the penalty of perjury that they understand that that question is right. There is no such thing as an independent contractor in construction. Full stop. EDD will tell you that. FTB will tell you that. The IRS will tell you that. Now CSLB is telling you that. And I think that there are multiple ways in which the agency, without a whole lot of investigative effort, will be able to track these and capture these flagrant violators through existing agencies that have already mutual understanding agreements with CSLB.
And that's a great point, Miguel, is CSLB currently notified by EDD if said a complaint or EDD unemployment comes in place and that to a specific contractor, to what Miguel stated, if someone applies for unemployment insurance and then they're saying they don't have workers' comp, does that information get to CSLB?
We have a memorandum of understanding with EDD, and it's something we're in the process currently of renegotiating, but the answer is if they make a finding that is electronically transferred to CSLB, it generally results in a suspension of the license for unpaid tax withholding. But as far as sharing of information, it is shared through the Joint Enforcement Strike Force, of which Steve is our liaison. Now, unfortunately, there's so much of this occurring today that it hasn't been a top priority, Steve, you can correct me on this, for our staff to be able to enforce that. Now, one tool that we currently have, and I don't have the statistics available for this meeting, but if we find a contractor has workers and no workers' comp, by operation of law, we can suspend the license. And you see a lot of that at our Intake Mediation Center. So that's all something that can be looked at, will continue to be looked at, and it comes down to the prioritization of our resources at CSLB.